On the eve of the U.S. Open Fan Week, the tournament's most famous star ignored the rainy weather and headed straight towards the courts. Among the players we saw were Daniil Medvedev, Naomi Osaka, and Rafael Nadal. Here's everything we know about their practice ahead of the 2022 U.S. Open. First off, who's been training hard for the upcoming Grand Slam? The U.S. Open will feature present-day defending champion Daniil Medvedev and other ex-major champions, including fan favorites such as Rafael Nadal, Stan Wawrinka, Simona Halep, Naomi Osaka, and Sloane Stephens. The players have been getting in plenty of practice during their training sessions at the USTA Billie Jean King National Tennis Center. Four-time Grand Slam champion and two-time winner in New York in 2018 and 2020, Osaka returned to one of her favorite courts for an early morning training session inside Arthur Ashe Stadium. Nadal joined Osaka on the Open's biggest court. We saw him arrive there at the Open fresh off his competitive return at the Southern and Western Open in Cincinnati last week. The 22-time Grand Slam champion was defeated by eventual champion Borna Coric in Cincinnati, his first match action since withdrawing ahead of his semifinal match at Wimbledon, in which he was scheduled to play against Nick Kyrgios. Nadal's training was carried out under the observant eye of his coach, Carlos Moya, who himself was an ex-number 1 and Grand Slam champion. Two-time U.S. Open quarterfinalist Andrei Rublev, who's entering the U.S. Open ranked number 11 in the world, is hoping to rebound from a tough summer hardcourt season with a massive U.S. Open showing. After being defeated in the semifinals at the City Open by Yoshihito Nishioka, he dropped his first match to Daniel Evans in Canada, and also his second-round match with Taylor Fritz in Cincinnati. Now, tennis veterans who were there. Another ex-U.S. Open champion we got to see in action was American Sloane Stephens, who was wearing a Nike training top so bright it took most of the attention. There was no shortage of top 5 talent. Current women's number 5, Ons Jabeur, was also seen practicing on court on Monday. The Tunisian established a place for herself in history, with her runner-up showing at the season's final Grand Slam by managing to get to the final of Wimbledon. She was the very first African woman and the first North African player participating in the Open era to reach a Grand Slam singles final. Then we also got to see a teen player. 19-year-old Dane Holger Rune is one of the only 2 teenagers in the ATP's top 100. He took a set from legendary player Novak Djokovic in the first round about a year ago, and after getting to the quarterfinals at Roland Garros this spring, he's definitely aiming for more during his second trip to New York. Italian tennis player Yannick Sinner has gotten to 2 Grand Slam quarterfinals in 2022, and will have to post a new career best result in New York to match that at the U.S. Open. After being defeated in the first round during his last 2 trips to New York, Sinner got himself to round 4 last year. Let's talk about the women in tennis. Let's go to the women's side. Ex-number 1 and 2-time major champion Simona Halep arrived in New York after an invigorating summer. The Romanian tennis player bagged her biggest title in over 2 years in the WTA 1000 level National Bank Open, and has thus regained her place in the WTA top 10 at number 6 in the rankings. It's not just business for the game's finest. Halep teamed up with renowned coach Patrick Mouratoglou in April, and the two have been by each other's side ever since. In between hitting sessions, they even have some lighthearted moments on the practice court. Ex-U.S. Open champion Stan Wawrinka is booked to play in the men's single draw for the first time since 2019. The 2016 winner came back to the tennis court in March after spending almost a whole year on the sidelines with a left foot injury. The Swiss got into the main draw with an injury-protected ranking. Next up, what's going on with Kyrgios? Wimbledon finalist Kyrgios, on the other hand, is coming back to the U.S. Open in probably the greatest form of his career. After coming runner-up at the All-England Club, he was the winner at the U.S. Open Series event in Washington, D.C., and even got to the quarterfinals in Montreal. He's probably going to try to improve his all-time best showing of round 3 this year, which is a feat he's already accomplished an impressive 4 times. Finally, a few surprises coming to the U.S. Open. 8 years may have passed since the U.S. Open victory, but Marin Cilic is ready for his 14th appearance in New York's main draw. The 33-year-old Croatian is still at his peak and shows no signs of slowing down. He's still doing his best on the game's biggest stages. By getting to the semifinals at Roland Garros in 2022, Cilic is the 5th active player and the very first Croatian man to make it that far at all 4 Grand Slams. Then there was Andy. A decade after his first, until now only victory in New York, Andy Murray returned to the practice courts. The Scot returned to the top 50 for the first time in 4 years before this year's Open kicks off. Casper Ruud has also returned to the U.S. Open as a Grand Slam finalist. The Roland Garros runner-up, who ranks now stands at number 5 in the world, is looking to turn things around from a losing career record in New York this year. He got to the 3rd round in 2022, but was just 3-4 at the Open all-time. 2-time U.S. Open semifinalist Pablo Carreno Busta is going to be making his comeback too. We'll get to see him in the 2022 U.S. Open in rarefied air. 2 weeks ago, he bagged his biggest career title at the ATP Masters 1000 event in Montreal. Other related news. First off, who is set to play against Serena Williams? Serena Williams' first opponent at what she's confirmed will probably be her last U.S. Open, not to mention the last tournament of her career, is the unseeded Danka Kovinic. If she wins, Williams could go up against number 2 seed Anett Kontaveit of Estonia for the next round. Play kicks off on the 29th of August, Monday, and the USTA announced hours after the draws that Williams' half of the women's field will have their match that day. The first round will proceed further on Tuesday. The 23-time Grand Slam champion, who will turn 41 on September 26, announced just this month she was getting ready to walk away from her long and impressive career. She didn't give a timeline exactly, but we have a feeling that the U.S. Open would mark her farewell. Williams has won the hard court tournament in Flushing Meadows 6 times. Kovanic has never been able to get through the second round in any of her 4 appearances at the U.S. Open. She is a 27-year-old from Montenegro, and for now, she's 80th in the WTA rankings this week. The highest she's gotten is 46th. Kovanic and Williams have never competed against each other in singles, until now that is. Williams is 1-3 this season, having made a recent comeback to singles action after a year off while she healed from an injury during Wimbledon in 20. Next up, looks like Djokovic won't be at the U.S. Open this year. Ex-world number 1 Novak Djokovic will be skipping the U.S. Open this year after he said recently that he won't be able to travel to New York for the tournament, having chosen not to vaccinate himself against COVID. This is going to be the second Grand Slam the 35-year-old tennis player will skip due to not being vaccinated. He was deported before the Australian Open earlier in the year. Sadly, I will not be able to travel to New York this time for the U.S. Open, Djokovic wrote on Twitter. Good luck to my fellow players. I'll keep in good shape and positive spirit and wait for an opportunity to compete again. The Serb previously stated he was ready to miss Grand Slam tournaments that need participating players to be vaccinated against COVID-19. Djokovic was put on the entry list for the August 29 to September 11 tournament in New York. The U.S. Tennis Association said that Djokovic's absence at the Grand Slam was definitely unfortunate, but he's more than welcome to join them next year. Finally, there's one more player who won't be at the U.S. Open. World number 2 Alexander Zverev has pulled out from the U.S. Open as he stays on the path to recovery from torn ankle ligaments. The announcement was made by tournament organizers. Zverev, 25, has not played tennis since the injury he received during his semifinal match versus Rafael Nadal at the French Open in June. He left the court at Roland Garros in a wheelchair and had to undergo surgery to repair 3 torn ligaments in his right ankle. The German lost the 2020 U.S. Open final to Dominic Thiem, despite leading by 2 sets and managed to get to the semifinals last year. He's going to be replaced in the main draw of the August 29 to September 11 tournament by American Stefan Kozlov. Zverev had completed 27 consecutive Grand Slams ever since his 2015 debut before the injury made him sit Wimbledon out. His name's been given in Germany's team for the group stage of the Davis Cup Finals, which is just next month. And so, Zverev's absence would mark the second top 10 men's player being absent from the last Grand Slam of the year, the first being Djokovic. That's a wrap for this video. What are your predictions for the U.S. Open 2022? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.